Carter Hart. It is a name that has come up. If you remember, his last game in the orange and black was January 20th, 2024. When he departed from the team, he left a .906 save percentage in his wake. I think he's at like a 2.8 goals against average. He was having a good-ish season, not a great team in front of him. And as he kind of parted ways with the team, there was no scorched earth that happened with this team and organization, which we kind of found interesting at the time. And in the time that has followed, it seems as though they've mutually parted ways. It was respectful, whatever. The verdict finally comes down today that Hart, along with the 4 other players who were named in a Hockey Canada trial that were accused of some pretty awful things, ultimately the judge found that the Crown did not meet the burden of proof. As such, all 4 players have been acquitted. And now there are questions about what happens next. Will any of them be eligible to join the league? Will there be an appeal process? Which I can't imagine there will be. And ultimately, will a team sign Carter Hart? I think we can all probably agree. The answer is yes. Some team will likely get in on signing Carter Hart at some point between now and the end of the season. Will it be now? Will it be halfway through the season? Will it be ahead of training camp? I wanted to get your initial thoughts here because I've seen a lot of conjecture online about the appeal process. And if you remember Mitch Miller, who the Bruins tried to sign after some awful allegations, the league had said he was going to have to go through an appeal process to get back in. I believe Quenneville and or Babcock had to do the same thing. In this case, it's players that have been acquitted. And regardless of how people feel about those accusations and about the trial and everything, if you've been acquitted, should there be an appeal process to get back in? Have you gotten any additional understanding about what the process is going to be for these guys? Where are you at?
Well, I think ultimately, guys, they're going to take a little bit of time with this. I don't think that anybody's going to rush to this. I mean, everybody wants to rush to judgment right away. The Crown came out after the case on the steps of the courthouse, and they didn't give an answer on whether or not they're going to appeal. They basically said they're going to review the court's decision, and then they'll make a determination on what the next steps will be thereafter, right? So I can't imagine that the NHL will respond as far as reinstatements are concerned until after it's determined whether there's going to be an appeal. Because if in fact the Crown appeals and you have to go through another court process, I think that delays things a lot further, right? Yeah. Because you never know what could happen upon appeal. I think it's probable that these guys are acquitted and they're going to stay acquitted, but you just never know. So, I mean, really kind of depends. Maybe if the Crown finds something that they want to get persnickety about and go after, a higher court's ruling or whatever, then they will. But otherwise, I think you're probably looking at this being what it is. If, in fact, that's the case, then the NHL has to make a determination what they're going to do. Are they just going to simply reinstate them? Are they going to reinstate them with supplemental punishment, basically for, bad representation of the league, et cetera, et cetera? That's to be determined as well. If, in fact, there's supplemental discipline, I got to imagine that the Players Association would then fight back and appeal that additional discipline, right? So depending on what that discipline is and depending on that appeal, I think that you're probably still looking at time before players or teams start going, okay, we want to sign these guys. And and the final thing I'll say is, let's be realistic here. With the exception of Carter Hart, are any of them really NHL caliber guys right now? I got to think the other 4 guys, they were bottom 6 players, bottom of the lineup players at best. And some weren't even in the NHL. One guy was playing in the K. I got to think that that's probably where they start, or something of that ilk. Hart's the one guy who you look at and go, yeah, he could probably get back up to speed because he was good enough to play in the league. So he's probably the one guy teams would have immediate interest in. But I still think that there's going to be a process that needs to play out before that happens.
Just to be clear, I've seen a lot of people asking in the comments about double jeopardy. Apparently, in the Canadian courts, if there is a belief that there was a legal error made in the original case, you can appeal in the case of the Crown. So it's an acquittal. In theory, we look at it as Americans go, that's double jeopardy, it can't work. In theory, it can. But it's a legal basis. I don't know what that would look like. I mean, there was the mistrial declared where they got rid of the jury. Then there was the reapplication of it where the judge ended up determining that they were going to be the ones, she was going to be the one to issue the verdict, not another jury. Feels like it was really kind of overly complicated to some extent. I don't know if it looked like you were going to jump in there, Ant.
No, I was going to say, I mean, like, you know, maybe from a legal perspective, the Crown looks at it and says, hey, this is how this was operated by this judge. We lost. We had a mistrial. We had a dismissal of a jury. We had evidence that wasn't allowed to be,
entered in evidence.
In court. Like, there's a lot of things that maybe the Crown can look at and say, do we want to continue to pursue this? But maybe they look at it and say, also, yeah, we probably could do that, but are we going to get a different outcome the next time? Is the juice worth the squeeze in a lot of regard in that regard? So I think that's really what they're going to take their time to look at here over the next couple of weeks. They may not take the full 30 days to decide. They may, make a determination within a week or two that they're not going to pursue an appeal. But you got to at least give the Crown the time to consider that and think about that, because that is their right.
Bundy, to Ant's point a little bit ago, the idea of like teams maybe starting to approach the idea of of bringing any of these guys in. I believe 4 of them had been playing in the NHL or AHL at the time. Fermenton, I think, was playing in the KHL or playing in Sweden or something. Hart obviously was here with the Flyers. Just on the surface, do you think teams have had this conversation already about potentially bringing in one of these guys? I mean, it's been almost 2 years. By the time some of these guys take the ice, it might actually be 2 years from the time they last played in the league. Do you think these conversations have already been underway and now it's just a matter of the waiting game?
That's a really good question, Russ, and I'm not 100% sure on that, but I would assume with the amount of dead time that you can sometimes find in a management office, especially this time of year, I can't imagine that the names of these players weren't addressed somehow, some way, some form, just amongst management groups themselves, talking about the possibilities if they were found not guilty or they were cleared of this. So of course there's going to be smoke around that fire. I'm just not really sure at the limits. I think Anthony made a really good point. Outside of Hart, how viable are the other options that are out there? And I'm not sure that teams are going to be racing to that. Hart is still relatively young in terms of the goaltender position, has had experience in the league. And if teams want to have a look at these guys, how would they do that? They haven't played in some time. There will require perhaps a way for them to go out and examine or take a look at these players playing or practicing under some sort of controlled environment that gives them an idea of what they look like, at least have an idea of what they look like, because there's been no game film or anything to go over. So it's a lot of weird stuff. I haven't followed into the detail that Anthony just kind of threw out there with all the legalities and the Crown and the appeals and the double jeopardy and all that. I'm not really in tune to how all that plays out. But from a standpoint of NHL teams, at least kicking tires, I can assure you that there's been teams that have kicked these tires, no doubt.